that night, part of it was, well, maybe he was just pulling off the road for a bit. And it wasn't really till a few days later I found out that that's the end of that period.
Right.
It was kind of unpredictable, even going through the Ziggy period.
Mm.
You couldn't sort of rely on that what was said yesterday is what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
So you always had to be prepared for changes.
To coin a phrase.
Here's the pun. Yeah. You even on the studio, you'd sort of he'd say, "Oh, Mick, Woody, I'd come in. I've just finished this song," and he'd play it, and I go, "Oh, that's cool. I like that. I like the chorus, bloody man. Okay, we'll do that one tomorrow." So we'd have a couple of listens to it, just on acoustic guitar, and get in the studio and go, and the band would be going, okay, so its intro is blah, then it's verse, chorus, middle 8-bit, then that solo bit, then, and then he'd go, okay, no, we're not doing that one. Okay, what are we doing? I've just finished this one, and he'd play one, and you'd hear it maybe twice, and that was it. He'd say, are we rolling? Let's record. And we'd be going, where does it go next?
Yeah.
What happens at the end? Do I go on to cymbal? Is that a chorus at the end? So when you actually recorded, you were really riding a knife edge.
Right.
Because, you had at the most, before it became a bit stressed, 3 takes.
Right.
And then if you didn't get it in, then it got pretty uncomfortable. It was expected you would get it. Because he did want it fresh.
Sure.
Not that we knew that at the time, that was the plan. But he was right. If we'd have done another one, it would have been technically better, but it wouldn't have had the feel. So he was incredible at that, at knowing when it had it. I mean, Mick Ronson he'd go, okay, I'm going to do a solo on this, and he'd go down and he'd say, let me just have a few run-throughs so I can get used to it. And Bowie would say to Ken Scott, okay, record this, Ken. And Mick would play, and then he'd go, okay, roll it again, let me have another go. And he'd do another, and maybe 7 takes on the solo.
Right.
And he'd go, I think I've got it. And he'd do one, and when he came up, Bowie would say, play him the first one.
Right.
That he did when he didn't know, and that was it.
He was very devious.
Yeah. And while the 6 takes were going on, Bowie would be reading the Rolling Stone or something.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like, okay. Poor Mick was down there sweating, trying to get a better solo than the one he couldn't beat.
I was looking at the long list of people you've played with over the years, and by the way, I should mention we're talking to drummer Woody Woodmansey from the Spiders from Mars, David Bowie's backing band in the early 70s. And, I see you played with Dexy's Midnight Runners and Art Garfunkel and also Paul McCartney. What was that like?
We did a single for Children in Need in London, in England. Mm-hmm. And McCartney let us use his studio to do it, and then he ended up kind of producing it and playing bass on it, which was nice to play along with him. We did about an hour jamming before we started recording, and that was quite surreal with his fiddle bass.
Right.
Playing as part of a rhythm section with Paul McCartney. It was like, whoa, is this really happening?
Yeah.
But it was cool.
I imagine he wanted to jam on oldies from the 50s. That seems to be his...
Yeah, he kept slipping into that. And then a bit of reggae. He did a bit of reggae.
Oh, yeah.
So it was good.
So let's get into this new project of yours, this new band called 3D. And it's not just an all-percussion band. You've got other instruments on here with you too, right?
We use bass, keys, keyboards, sax, and samples, really. Really from getting into a lot of the DJ stuff from clubs and that. I started listening to DJ Shadow and Crush, DJ Food, and really getting off on that stuff. Just it was kind of exciting for me. Although they use samples most of the time for everything, the approaches they had, the different ideas I liked. So we kind of wanted to do. I've always wanted to do a record or an album that was more drum orientated, rather than having to follow a song.
Right.
Like, what groove do you think would be good, or what things do you like to play? So it was kind of, well, that seemed to be the only way of doing that. And then my other son is a drummer as well and a producer, and he'd been doing drum and bass and breakbeat stuff, all sorts of stuff in England. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to his production get better and better. And then we got asked to do. They heard we were playing drums together because we'd sit and play together. And this club in London said, "Would you come? We've got six DJs on during the night."
Right.
And they all said, "Would you come up and play along with them?" And we went, "Oh, that might be interesting." So that was my step into the club scene, really. So we just took percussion and two kits and played along all night. And that was good because it was. We didn't know what was coming. We'd not heard the music or anything.
Right, sure.
And we just played along, and it was good. We got into being able to do that really well, and they said, "Okay, well, why don't you do your own sort of half-an-hour set?" And we were like, "Whoa, okay." So at first we just did it with drums. We just did drum and percussion numbers. So it was kind of work out drum things and percussion that is not boring, and it's not a drummer playing all his favorite licks that only another drummer would get off on.
Right.
Just kind of throw all that out, and now what can you do with drums to keep people interested? So we had to start thinking melodically with tuning the drums so you could play a tune while you were playing a beat and things like that.
Now this is you and your two sons?
On the album, it's my two sons because the other one drums as well.
I see.
But in 3D, it's just two of us because my eldest son leans more onto the jazz thing, and he's just got himself a deal with the jazz label over here. So he's just went off to do that, basically. I mean, when we put this together, it was just my other son, Danny, and myself. And because we thought we might need other drum parts that he was good at, we thought, okay, well, we'll take him with us to America. So that's how that came about. Because
I thought, I naturally assumed, and I guess I'm wrong, that the 3D stood for three drummers.
No, that was kind of coincidental. It wasn't part of the plan, really. I mean, a lot of people have said that. A lot of people would come up when we played and said, "I know there's just two of you playing up there, but it sounds like there's more going on than just two drummers." Because I don't usually like drummers. I usually go to the bar when the drummer does a drum solo or something. But you guys don't. You guys are different. It sounds like there's other instruments playing, but I can see there isn't. That's when we were doing the early stuff with just drums and percussion. Mm-hmm. And it was really because, we play for an audience. We don't play for our enjoyment as such. That's not the senior thing. And so getting a melody in there or a duplicable rhythm that they can follow was a senior part of what we do.
By the way, where can people find out not only about you, but also hear some tracks, get some tracks from Is it Project 3D or just 3D?
It's just 3D is the name of the band.
Right.
But the website where they can check what you've just said out is 3dproject.co.uk. So it's 3dproject.co.uk. And I've got a MySpace as well if they want to check me out.
Before I let you go, and I apologize, because what did I tell you? I said, we'll talk for like 10 or 15 minutes.
No, that's totally cool.
I'm like, oh my God, I've had you on for like 35 minutes. When you were growing up, and I have to ask you this because obviously drums are everything to you, but would Keith Moon be like the big influence on you?
Very much. Very much. I mean, really, I think I was 16 when I first saw The Who play, and I scrambled my way to the front of the stage, and just amazing. One of the most entertaining drummers to watch. You just did not know what the guy was going to do next, and you couldn't stop watching him. And when it was in the My Generation days. So,
sure.
So he smashed the whole kit to bits, and the cymbal missed my head by about 1 inch. It just dug into the stage But it was, you know, I never thought about I could have had my head taken off. It was just exciting. I was part of it, you know. So yeah, it was. I mean, him and really, as I was about 14, it was 60s drummers, really.
Sure.
You know, bands like the Hollies and the Kinks, the early Stone stuff, just getting into drumming, really, at that point. And then it was your Keith Moon, Ginger Baker from Cream, Mitch Mitchell with Hendrix.
Yeah.
That was the first album I actually went out and bought, was Are You Experienced by Hendrix. And I travelled on a bus in the middle of summer for 40 miles to get it.
Well, it's worth it.
And you know, when you get that album that you really want, came back clutching it, and I think I slept with it. Just amazing drummer.
There's something about, and I mean, I'm not a musician, I'm just a fan, you know, but there's something about a musician who has that, whatever it is, that it factor, you know?
Yeah.
And I can hear it like with Who records and with Keith Moon. I mean, there are some times where I'll put on a Who record and I'll only listen to Keith Moon, you know what I mean? I'll compartmentalize and just listen to him.
And that goes for the modern bands and everything. When something works, it is because of those members putting their input into that song, you know. You know, that song calls for, whether it's desperation or girls just lost boyfriend, it's whatever that means to those individual members. And it's what they put into it that makes that finished product. And what they're feeling, what it makes them feel like. And you're really using the drums or the bass to communicate that, because you're not all going to stand there and say, well, what happened to me was this girl, you know,
right?
Because that's not a good record. So you're doing it through those instruments, and it's the feeling. It's, you know, if it's about excitement, then you're supposed to play it excitedly and feel excited, not just play the part with notes that should be exciting. You're supposed to, you know, like an actor, really. A big part of it is acting. Can you actually feel that?
Right.
Is it true for you, what you're playing? Then if it is, then the audience will get it. If you're just going through the motions, it's like an actor who's just repeating the words off the script, you know. It doesn't communicate to an audience.
I feel like running out and learning how to play drums after this conversation.
It's easy. It's tell you, it's not easy. I mean, it's funny when I watch the kind of the different approaches, particularly between America and England.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably more a few years ago. You know, a lot of the drummers you met in America went to academies.
Right.
And it was always a big thing. In England, they didn't. In England, they just picked up the sticks and said, okay, I'm a drummer. And then they just started hitting and watching other drummers and watching, whether it's videos or TV, and kind of got it together. I like drummers with good, what I consider good feel, I guess.
Right.
Where it's more feel than technique. Because there's probably 5,000 drummers out there that are technically wizards.
Right.
That could probably beat the pants off most of the drummers that are at the top, technically. But they missed something somewhere along the way. Either they missed why they did it in the first place,
right?
Why, you know, or what they're supposed to be doing when they're on the stage. And they kind of, I don't know whether that's going to music colleges, you know, where they get told what it's all about, and note for note they learn it, and it's precise. And I think they lose something.
Well, listen, Woody, this has been great talking to you.
Cool. I can talk for weeks, mate.
Yeah. No, this is great.